Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of the Phaistos Disc, the 700-year-old object no one can read. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 1908, Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier was excavating the Minoan palace of Phaistos on Crete when he found a fired clay disc in a destruction layer. On both faces, 241 symbols had been pressed into the wet clay in a spiral pattern using individual stamps, 45 unique pictographic signs representing human figures, animals, tools, plants, and geometric forms. It was 700 years old, and it was like nothing anyone had ever seen. The Phaistos Disc may be the world's earliest example of movable type printing. Each sign was a separate stamp pressed into clay, implying a standardized sign set produced in advance. It predates Gutenberg by 3,000 years. It is written in a script found nowhere else on Earth, and because only one example has ever been discovered in 117 years of searching, the statistical tools that linguists use to crack unknown scripts cannot be applied. The disc sits in a museum in Heraklion. No one can read it. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the wider world of ancient technological anomalies, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The official story of technological progress follows a reassuring arc: stone to LS giving way to bronze, bronze to iron, iron to steel, and finally the Industrial Revolution catapulting humanity into the modern age. In this narrative, each generation inherits a slightly more sophisticated toolkit than the last, and no knowledge is ever truly lost. It is a comfortable story. It is also, in key respects, demonstrably false. History is littered with technological achievements that appeared centuries before their supposed invention, vanished after the cultures that created them collapsed, and were reinvented, often with great difficulty, by later civilizations who had no idea the knowledge had ever existed. Roman concrete was stronger and more durable than most modern concrete, and was not matched again until the 21st century. Greek fire, the incendiary weapon that protected the Byzantine Empire for centuries, has never been fully reproduced. Damascus steel, capable of holding an edge that modern metallurgists struggle to replicate, disappeared with the craftsmen who made it. These are not myths. They are documented historical losses of genuine technical knowledge. When we encounter an object from the ancient world that should not exist, a battery from Baghdad dated to the Parthian era, a computing mechanism salvaged from an ancient shipwreck, a map showing geographical features that were not officially discovered for another millennium, the temptation is to dismiss it as misidentified or misstated. That dismissal is sometimes warranted. But when such objects accumulate, when the pattern becomes too consistent to ignore, the honest response is to ask whether our model of ancient capability is simply wrong. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding the Phaistos Disc. The 700-year-old object no one can read is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Luigi Pernier discovered the disc on 3 July 1908 in the basement storerooms of the Minoan palace of Phaistos, in a destruction layer that also contained Middle Minoan Roman III pottery, dating the context to approximately 170–1600 BC. The disc was fired, intentionally hardened in a kiln, rather than sun-dried like most clay tablets, suggesting it was meant to be permanently preserved. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes, but as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the disc is 16 centimeters in diameter and approximately 1 centimeter thick. Both faces carry text pressed in a spiral arrangement, reading from the outside inward or the inside outward. Side A contains 123 sign groups, and Side B contains 118 sign groups, with groups separated by incised lines. Total symbol count is 241, comprising 45 distinct signs. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The manufacturing method is remarkable. Each of the 45 symbols was created using an individual hand stamp pressed into the wet clay before firing. This means the maker possessed a complete set of pre-made sign stamps, a sign repertoire produced in advance of the specific text. Some scholars have called this the earliest known application of the movable type principle, predating Gutenberg's press by approximately 100 years. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the script is classified separately from the other known Minoan scripts, linear and Cretan hieroglyphic. Despite the same island of origin and overlapping time period, the Phaistos Disc signs share no clear correspondences with either linear or Cretan hieroglyphic, raising the possibility that it represents a different language or a specialized writing system with a distinct origin. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Jerome Eisenberg, a classical art dealer and scholar, published a detailed argument in 2008 in the journal Minerva proposing the disc was a forgery fabricated by Luigi Pernier himself, who may have wanted to make a spectacular discovery. Eisenberg cited the absence of parallels and the suspicious circumstances of its finding. His argument remains a minority view and has been rejected by most Aegean Bronze Age specialists. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Gareth Owens, a linguist at the Technological Educational Institute of Crete, published work from 2014 onward proposing a partial decipherment identifying the disc as a religious hymn to a Minoan mother goddess. His reading drew on correspondences with Linear B, the only deciphered Aegean Bronze Age script. Other linguists have been skeptical, noting that the methodological steps from Linear B to an unrelated script are not sufficiently rigorous to constitute a valid decipherment. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Phaistos Disc, the 700-year-old object no one can read. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Gareth Owens's religious hymn interpretation, using correspondences between the disc signs and linear B-syllabic values. Owens proposed the text is a devotional hymn to Astarte or a Minoan mother goddess figure. His reading produces some phonetically plausible sequences, but requires assumptions about sign values that other specialists regard as insufficiently grounded, and the full text does not yield a coherent translatable message under his system. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Jerome Eisenberg's forgery hypothesis, the disc was fabricated by Pernier around 1908, capitalizing on the excitement of early Minoan archaeology and the prestige of a spectacular find. Eisenberg argued the absence of any parallel object anywhere in the ancient world is suspicious, and that the disc's surface shows signs inconsistent with genuine Bronze Age manufacture. The hypothesis is rejected by most specialists, who consider the thermoluminescence dating and contextual evidence sufficient to confirm authenticity. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that undecipherable administrative or ritual text. The most cautious scholarly position holds that the disc records a genuine message in a genuine but unknown language or dialect, possibly a non-Minoan script from a trading partner or island community. Without additional examples to build a comparison corpus, standard decipherment methodology cannot be applied, and any proposed reading must be regarded as speculation regardless of its internal plausibility. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Phaistos Disc, the 700-year-old object no one can read, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the stamp manufacture technique is confirmed by microscopic examination. The signs show the characteristic impression marks of individual punches rather than the line variations of a stylus. And repeated instances of the same sign show identical geometry consistent with a single stamp used multiple times. This manufacturing evidence is widely accepted and represents the strongest case for the disc's Bronze Age authenticity. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented thermoluminescence dating of the fired clay has confirmed a Bronze Age firing date, consistent with the Middle Minoan Roman III context in which it was found. The palace destruction layer provides a reliable terminus ante quem. The disc was present at Phaistos before the destruction event, placing it firmly in the Bronze Age, regardless of the script's origin. Arthur Evans and subsequent specialists have confirmed the archaeological context. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed. Digital multispectral imaging conducted in 2014 revealed additional details of the disc's surface, including faint traces suggesting corrections or additional marks not visible under our normal light. This suggests genuine compositional process rather than a mechanical reproduction and adds nuance to the understanding of how the disc was made, though it has not resolved the decipherment question. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Phaistos Disc, the 700-year-old object no one can read. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. No decipherment of the Phaistos Disc has been accepted by the scholarly community. Owens's partial reading has some linguistic supporters, but is not considered verified. Eisenberg's forgery claim remains a minority view, with most Aegean Bronze Age specialists satisfied that the disc is genuine. Digital imaging in 2014 provided new surface detail for analysis. The fundamental problem is statistical. With only one known example and 45 unique signs, the information available is insufficient to anchor a decipherment securely. And any proposed reading is essentially unfalsifiable without additional texts in the same script. The disc remains on display at the Heraklion Archaeological Museum in Crete. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis. And the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Phaistos Disc, the 700-year-old object no one can read, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Phaistos Disc ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle, it is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.